Hello, you are watching my YouTube channel. I'm your host, Kamran Ashtar. Today, we have invited a guest in this vlog, and I'm going to discuss her life, her visions, her goals, and most importantly, her skills. Hi, and welcome. We are delighted to have Stephanie Samuel here today. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Stephanie, before to start this interview properly, could you please tell us what inspired you to pursue a career as environmental abstract painter, and definitely perhaps share a bit about your journey, which helped you in the life to leading up to your current role?
Sure. Um, I started to be an abstract environmental artist.
Hmm.
That's been recent. I started out 30 years ago as a ceramicist, a clay person, and I was doing
Hmm.
clay sculptures.
Hmm.
I've always had an interest in the environment,
Hmm.
and even my clay sculptures were also
Hmm.
environmentally based, but also very
Hmm.
much family based. And I'm from Detroit, Michigan, so there was a lot of it. They were very big, very totemic. There was a lot of African, indigenous
Hmm.
people, indigenous roots from my home,
Hmm.
and that was part of my work at that time. And it was about 6 feet tall, and then others were large wall platters built out of in 3D and hung on the wall. And so I had a very thriving studio practice.
Hmm.
However, I got a divorce. My children were only 2 and 5, and I couldn't
Hmm.
afford to support them on an artist's salary because I was self sustaining, but I couldn't afford when it came down to health care and what have you.
Hmm.
So kids were raised, remarried, and I started just playing around, setting up a studio and playing around, not doing clay.
Hmm.
And I gradually emerged where the climate change became so threatening to me and so weighed so heavily on my mind that it had to come out. I had to do something because it was eating me up. And so I started researching, I read, I attend lectures, I've given lectures, um, and I have many climate change groups that I'm actively involved with. And so I started doing paintings and mixed media about problems that I find going on and to help people become aware of what's happening with our climate. And pictures don't necessarily have to be ugly, they can also be beautiful, but
Hmm.
there's ways that I tend to express what I'm either by my titles. I'm also a songwriter, poet, so the titles are very meaningful to me.
You are very
Um,
talented person.
and
You are doing a lot of things. How is it possible? Because I
so
only do one
sometimes,
thing at a
or
time, and
sometimes I'll write.
I had to face failures in the life. But you are multi-talented person. That you are a painter, you
Yeah.
know about the environmental issues, what is happening in this world, and you are very much updated about the environmental changes. And you are a poetess, you are a writer. Who are you actually?
Well, I am what I am. Just I just try to hang on to my sanity during this world. That's all I can say.
That's really great.
So
I can make you my
if
role
I
model.
didn't have any artistic outlets, so but that's where the environmental work started to come in. And so for
Hmm.
the past couple of years, I've been doing it. And I recently, this past July, had a one person climate show called
Hmm.
I can't remember. I invited environmental
Hmm. Stephanie, how old are you?
groups to come in and discuss rewilding rivers and
Hmm.
recycling. What?
How old are you?
What? Yeah. So, how old am I? I am
Yeah.
64.
64?
Soon to be, well, in May I turn 65.
But you look like
Yeah.
38 years.
Yes. Oh, thank you. I
Yeah.
love you.
Thank you so
So
much. All right.
it's
Stephanie, I want to
I
know one
figure,
thing.
it's
As
never too late
as
to
per
keep going. What?
yeah, I want to know one thing about you. As far as I know about yourself, what you are speaking, what you are saying about yourself. Uh, I want to know the moment when you discovered inside you a person who had potential to do all the things and to deal with all stuff like you are a rider, you are a poetess, you are a painter, and you are a keen observer, and you know the public pulse as well.
Well, I think it came from an unhappy childhood, and it was my way of coping with that
Hmm,
childhood was going inside of myself and
hmm,
going inside nature and learning ways to cope with
hmm,
my home life.
hmm,
And that was my escape. So I always I played guitar. I started writing and playing guitar when I was about 16, maybe younger. I started poetry writing when I was about 10. Um, I started art when I was in high school,
hmm,
and then it all just continued from there. And then I
hmm,
went to university where I studied art, but also art studies. And then I apprenticed with the ceramicist, so I was a clay person for many years.
hmm,
And I was doing large scale sculptures and wall
hmm,
platters and a variety of things.
hmm,
And so then when I got a divorce, I had to take time off to get a real job.
hmm,
So I had insurance for medical health for my children,
hmm,
and they were
hmm,
only 2 and 5 at the time. So
hmm.
that's kind of my background.
Okay, let's move on. Stephanie, what inspires you to create
Okay.
abstract art with an environmental focus, and how do you incorporate nature into your work?
Well, I incorporate nature. First of all,
Hmm,
abstract art is, for me, I've just
hmm,
always been drawn to
hmm,
abstract art. It's
hmm,
really always spoken
hmm,
to me in terms of
hmm,
paints.
hmm,
And so I knew that as I was started to work in paint. I paint in well, we'll talk about what I use as my mediums, but it's a water soluble oil paint.
hmm,
And so I work in oils, and I also work in mixed media.
hmm,
So at times, I will read something or do research or have a discussion about something that's going on in our planet that's hurting the environment.
hmm,
It could be specific or it could be more generalized. And I will then
hmm,
be inspired to do a
hmm,
painting about that.
hmm,
And that will produce a very specific painting on a very specific topic.
hmm,
Um, and then other times, I will still, one person called me. What did she refer to my work as?
hmm,
She said there's part of your work that is indigenous, which I found to
hmm,
be very interesting because I'm not a person of color. Um,
hmm,
but there's a part of me that has always been very spiritual and very by nature in nature, spiritual of
hmm,
nature. And
hmm,
that's where and the feeling that I have towards indigenous people
mm,
is one of profound respect. And
mm,
what we have done, even as Americans, what we did with our slaves and African Americans,
mm,
I'm so, and so other countries have done the same. And I'm just, it shames me. So, anyways, you, you know, when I think about the ecology, I think about the indigenous people who ran. They were here before us, and
mm,
they were doing a fine
mm,
job keeping this planet clean and
mm,
healthy. And then we come
mm,
along and with our, idea of being the masters to really
mm,
hurt our planet in the meantime.
mm, mm.
So that's where the abstract and the environmental comes in. So
Okay.
oftentimes I will actually take a piece or pieces of
Mm,
shredded bark and
mm,
incorporate them to my
mm,
into the
mm,
paintings, put them right on the paintings,
mm,
or I'll take corn husks and turn them into
mm,
canoes and put them directly onto the paintings with perhaps Japanese paper underneath the then with the painting in there as well. So
mm,
I use source material
mm, mm.
as well.
Stephanie, how do you convey your message about environmental issues through abstract painting? And what do you hope viewers take away from your art?
Well, it's I try to do it through shows. I just got back recently,
Mm,
like last week
mm,
or this week. I did a month-long artist in residency
mm,
in La Gomera. And
mm,
this is the second smallest island in the
mm,
Canary Archipelago. It's off the
mm,
coast of Africa. And I wanted to study climate change on this
mm,
particular island because it's the only place that you can find the ancient Laura Silva tree. And
mm,
it's the largest park, national forest. It's a UNESCO
mm,
biosphere. And the whole
mm,
island is a UNESCO biosphere.
mm,
So they're trying very hard to keep it alive. And climate change has
mm,
really affected this
mm,
particular island. They are not getting the same rains that they used
mm,
to get. So when you're there, you have to be extremely careful with the water
mm,
and water usage. There is signs all over the place. On the
mm,
beach, they shut down, you rinse your feet sometimes under a shower. That's all closed down. Everything is just water conscious.
mm,
And there's also an erosion of the
mm,
island that's happening. And that's not so much due to climate change as much as it is due to the nature of this particular island. So
mm,
there's rock falling, but there's also people can't grow crops like they used to because you'll see these old terraces that people built in the past that used to be fertile and green and growing tomatoes, corn, whatever they grew. They're totally dry now. They can't water them.
mm,
So there's no
mm,
production, and it's a very hard island for people to live on.
mm,
Um, but it was fascinating. I did a lot of work while I was there, and just a lot of exploring. And the Laura Silla trees they're like a magical
mm,
forest. It's literally like a magical forest.
mm,
So um, uh, from there, I have a one person show coming up in February. So I'm going to take a lot of the artwork I made there, and I took a lot of photos, and I'll do more paintings and what have you based on La Gomera in climate change. So that'll be one specific show.
mm.
So I
Okay.
try to get my message out through shows. I'm on Instagram. I'm on, all the social media outlets, but it's hard. It's hard.
Mm,
I am not telling you, I'm changing the world. I'm not. I'm just doing one painting at a time. And if one person learns something and goes, I didn't know that, I might start recycling or
mm,
whatever. Um, that to me is a win because that's about what I can do is one person at a time.
Hmm.
And that's at least one person who might pass something on to another one, you
Stephanie,
know.
what do you do for fun?
For fun,
Yeah.
I do art. I play music, I read,
Hmm.
um, I'll watch movies. I have friends. I go out a lot. I go to a lot of openings, and I have my family, my boys, my mom, my husband. So we just hang out. We listen. We go to concerts and do the regular stuff.
Great to know. Okay, can you describe your creative process when starting a new piece,
Yeah,
particularly one that reflects environmental themes?
yeah. And when I start a new piece, I sometimes I don't know what I'm doing. I I I kind of have something in mind, but it's um it's often just intuitive. Like
Hmm.
I'll start something and then I kind of let my subconscious take over. Um I For instance, I use a lot of mediums. So a medium is, let's say I'm doing a canvas piece, right, on canvas. And I can use the first layer after priming your canvas.